Department 16 is now in session. Opportunity to preside.
Yeah.
Please be seated. Thank you.
I'll stay.
All right, we'll go back on the record and let's go ahead and set forth our appearances. We'll start first with the plaintiff, then we'll move to the defense.
Will Camp for plaintiff.
Robert Egglet for plaintiff, Your Honor.
Teddy Parker for plaintiff, Your Honor.
Morning, Your Honor. Eric Tuckerman for plaintiffs.
Good morning, Maggie Federico for plaintiffs. Good morning, Brianna Smith for plaintiffs.
Good morning, Your Honor. Tyler Watson and Eric Freeman for the defendants.
All right,
Your Honor, we have a stipulation with the defense. Apparently, we had some exhibits that were admitted, pre-admitted, and they're hearsay. They're basically expert reports that should not have been pre-admitted. So we have a stipulation to withdraw exhibits 1192. I don't know if anybody's writing this down.
She's writing it.
Okay. 1193, 1194, excuse me, 1195, not 4. 1196, 1197, 1198, 1199.
Sorry, 1999. You said 1199. Is that,
Oh, 1999, sorry.
What was that?
After 1198 should be 1999. 1200, 1201, and 1202.
sorry, I wonder if that's a typo. Just because it goes.
Yeah, I think this is a typo, Maggie.
Yes.
Weird. Please. This should be 1199. Yeah. So I was right the first time. It's a typo. It is not 1999. It is 1198 that's being withdrawn.
You said that one already.
And 1199.
Okay.
I think that the easiest way is I think it goes from 1197 to 1202 consecutively.
Yes. What is 19? Maggie, what is 1999?
I think it was an intentional loss.
Potentially left blank.
1199 is Stan Smith's report.
Oh, well, we don't want that in either.
Yo, that was
119.
Oh,
1199. But what is 1999?
That's not on
It
the
doesn't go that high.
Okay, so 1999 doesn't even exist. So,
and to the extent it's beneficial, we can just submit this.
yeah, can I just,
you can submit that so she can check just to make sure we have
so,
it correct.
but this should be one, you brought your pen.
Of course.
119.
And she thinks she has it. You want to read it back to him?
we're just gonna give her that.
Okay, to double check. And if it doesn't match up, we'll let you know.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right,
Those were taken off.
and
All right.
granted,
Yeah, I'll take a look. Thank you.
granted, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
Your Honor, I mentioned it yesterday, but we brought in lunch again for the juror and the court staff and all the attorneys to the extent they'd like it.
all right. Anything else outside the presence?
No, Your Honor.
None for the defense, Your Honor.
Okay,
Hurry, Your Honor.
you ready, Mr. Kemp?
Yes, Your Honor.
How much time do you think it'll take? Like an hour?
26 and a half minutes.
Okay.
Just guessing, Your Honor.
I
I'm just
understand.
gonna start a timer.
Mr. O'Doon did time me on the first job.
Oh, really?
He didn't think I could do it, because I did it an expert in, what, 3 minutes and 28 seconds?
That's impressive.
Yes. It was pretty lickety-split.
It was quick.
Plus, he paused a lot. It could have been faster.
It's a lot.
You know, any of these experts are drawing me in. There's a little pressure from all of you. There's not much to say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we mind if I test before?
Brought in. It's-
Right. You gotta justify it.
Yeah.
Also, it makes it kind of cost.
For you?
Yeah, right.
And I anticipate plaintiff's openings would take the rest of the day. Is that probably correct?
I don't think so, Your Honor. I think Mr. Parker's probably got an hour 5, he's telling me. He's gone, Mr. Eggers probably got an hour and a half hour. Yeah, so I think we'd probably maybe go to 3. Guessing.
What day is this? Today's Tuesday? Wednesday.
All rise to the jury. Please be seated. Thank you.
Do the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to say good morning to you.
Good morning.
And it's my understanding Mr. Kemp is going to continue with his closing argument. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Kemp, you have the floor.
Good morning, everybody. I'm probably going to be about 28 minutes, then Mr. Parker, I think, is going to go about an hour and 5, and then Mr. Eglet's going to go hour and a half, maybe hour 45. We talked yesterday about the compensatory damages for 11 of the plaintiffs, so now I'm going to shift over to punitive damages. Okay, this is a copy of the verdict form, Shane. So punitive damages is yes, no. Check yes. That's what we're going to advocate. So there's 4 different reasons why real water should be held liable for punitive damages, Shane. 1, they didn't do the general non-targeted screening test, and that's the GCMS test that would have found hydrazine before they started the sales, and they didn't do it again for a 12-year period after they got all these customer complaints. That's reason number 1. 2, they had poor or non-existent quality assurance. 3, they knew of serious customer complaints and they didn't diligently investigate them or go back and review their manufacturing process to try to figure out what was happening. And then 4th, they knew about all the customer complaints in the middle of October, October 15th, and they didn't start a recall. Despite the fact, you heard Mr. Randolph's testimony, I can play it again, he went to the office twice and begged that they do a recall. So let's start with the testing before you start, before the products start being sold. This was a brand new product. It wasn't just water, it was water that they put chemicals in and then they put massive amounts of electricity in. Shane? This is the holder where they put the titanium tubes. Do I have the tubes next, Shane? Or do I have the generator next? Good. This is the generator that they used to put the electricity into the water. And remember, it wasn't just a little shot for a minute or 2. They did 2 8-hour runs when they made the concentrate, and they applied this voltage constantly the entire time. So 16 hours, they're electrifying the water, and that's how they made the concentrate. And there were 4 steps to make this water. I've gone through them a couple times. And Dr. Najim, the world's leading hydrazine expert, told you about them. So 1, juice the water. That's the first 8 hours. 2, they separate the 300, the 150 gallons. Then they juice it again. And they separate the 150 to the 75, and then they mix it with more purified water, and that makes the real water product, and then they test it to see if they had to add more in. But the first 2 phases, I think, are the most important. They juice it for 8 hours, an extended period of time. Now, we called the inventor, that was Mr. Marlowe. He admitted this is exactly what they did. Remember, they used these titanium tubes, which they bought from, they came from Russia. So kind of a strange way to make alkaline water. But be that as it may, it was definitely unique, okay? And this is what Mr. Marlowe told you. And when you put the water through the tubes, you hooked up that charge boots on it. That was done for somewhere between 8 and 10 hours each time? Probably, yes. Okay. So that's just to emphasize the amount of time that they spent charging the water. And let's move to the testing point. Again, this is my first point. We asked Mr. Marlowe whether or not they ever did any testing. Go ahead, Shane. And have you ever heard of a testing machine called a GCMS, gas chromatograph mass spectrometry?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay. Did you do any testing on that?
I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know if the lab did or not.
So you've heard of it, but you didn't do it, did you?
No, I didn't.
Mr. Parker asked a very important question to Blaine Jones. Did you do any testing? Remember they started selling this product in 2008. So he asked him, did you do any testing between 2008 and 2020 when we got this flood of customer complaints? Here's what Blaine Jones said. Oh yeah, go ahead, give me the other Marlowe. Did you do any non-targeted testing to find something like hydrogen? No. Okay, so Marlowe didn't do it, the inventor. Now let's move to Blaine Jones. Right there, they didn't do any testing. So they're bringing a brand new product to the market made by what I would characterize as an outlandish manufacturing process, and they don't do any testing. So this is what Dr. Hutt, remember Dr. Hutt, she was our quality assurance expert. This is what she said they should have done before they sold this product to the public. Dr. Hutt? Oh, do I have another Marlowe? You're killing me today, Shane. Okay, let's have the next Marlowe. Before a bottled water manufacturer sells their water product to the public, they should know exactly what's in it, right?
Yes.
And since you didn't know about the hydrogen, you didn't know exactly what was in the
No, I guess not, no.
This is pretty obvious. Before you sell something to the public, a food or water product, you should know what the heck's in the product. He admits this is the inventor, and he tells you he didn't know what was in it. Now let's go to Blaine Jones, or excuse me, Dr. Hutt. All right, let's go back to the GCMS machine. Is it your opinion that Real Water should have tested the product before they sold it to the public with this GCMS machine?
Well, standard industry practice is we test our ingredients when they're coming in. We also test our finished product. We test it when we first design it, like we're creating a new product. We test it to make sure that we're making it safely, that everything in it is safe. In combination, also it's safe. And so you do that, and then you also have a requirement to test finished product routinely as well. And simply put, you create a new product, standard industry practice says you test it to make sure it's safe. $200, a little bit more maybe, you could have run it through that machine, they would have found that electrolysis process they're doing in the concentrate room is somehow producing hydrogen.
$200. That's what it would have cost to test this product over the 12 years. They could have done the exact same test that the FDA did, because the FDA did the GCMS test, the exact same test in the 12 years for $200. And as Dr. Hutt just told you, that's standard in the industry. And it should be standard in the industry. You should know what's in your product. Dr. Hutt explained the FDA testing. Again, this is in your book. This is in your jury notebook. Remember, this is the GCMS test. Go ahead, Shane. Let's see Dr. Hutt. All right, let's go back to the GCMS machine. Is it your opinion that Real Water should have tested the product before they sold it to the public with this GCMS machine?
Well, standard industry practice is we test our ingredients when they're coming in. We also test our finished product. We test it when we first design it, like we're creating a new product. We test it to make sure that we're making it safely, that everything in it is safe. in combination, also it's safe. And so you do that, and then you also have a requirement to test finished product routinely as well. And simply put, you create a new product, standard industry practices, you test it to make sure it's safe. $200, a little bit more maybe, you could have run it through that machine, you would have found that electrolysis process they're doing in the concentrate room is somehow producing hydrazine.
Okay, and do we have the key testing pack, Shane? So, standard test, standard GCMS test would have looked for everything. It's a screening test. It just doesn't look for hydrazine. It looks for hundreds of things. It would have found the hydrazine. $200, they didn't do it at any time. Next, Shane. Well, I just played you, Mr. Marlowe. He says they should have done it. They would have found it. So what is their defense? Okay. They argue, forget the fact we didn't know what was in our product. Forget the fact we didn't do any testing. We did some bacteria tests. Okay. And as Mr. Parker will tell you, the FDA found that they didn't even do the bacteria test correctly. But in any event, bacteria tests are a test for a specific substance. And it's good that they did the bacteria test, but the bacteria test is not a non-targeted screening test. And that's why we put the bacteria test in your jury notebook. You've got it in there. We put it in there for you to see it right up front. So even Mr. Marlowe knew that the bacteria test was not a substitute.
And do you know of any testing that was done, screening testing, non-targeted testing, any testing by anyone other than when we talked about the bacteria in the medicine? Not that I recall, no.
And now I think they're going to also argue maybe a little bit of misdirection. Oh, we didn't know there was hydrazine in there, so we shouldn't have tested for it. Well, that's the whole point about doing a non-targeted screening test. You don't have to know what you're testing for. If you already know what's in there, there's no reason to test. So that, I think, is going to be their argument. Our response is pretty simple. This was a bizarre manufacturing process, brand new process. They could have done the testing. Bacteria is not a screening test. It's completely different. And the hydrazine only test, we're not even suggesting they should have done a hydrazine only test. We're saying they should have done the screening test that would have found the hydrazine. And the bottom line here is something went wrong, horribly wrong, and it went wrong because they didn't follow standard industry practices. Even Mr. Marlowe, the inventor, admits something went wrong. Shane?
And we talked about the FDA finding hydrazine in the water. Yes, something real water should have known about one way or the other for this new product. Do you agree? Well, knowing what we know now, yes. So I'm not saying you made a mistake, but someone made a mistake somewhere down the line. Something went wrong, obviously, yes.
It's more than just a mistake. It was a conscious disregard of industry standards to know what's in your product and to test before you sell to the public. That's what happened here. That's the first area for the punitive damages. Second area is the quality assurance. I don't think there's really any valid dispute that they didn't have a serious quality assurance program. I mean, you just start out with Patty Converse. She's the receptionist, so for 6 weeks, she's the receptionist, and then they make her the quality control director for the next 2.5 years. This is what Dr. Hutt said about that.
Do you have any criticisms about Patty Converse's functioning as a quality control director?
Well, according to her own testimony, she was not prepared to be a quality control director. She was hired as a receptionist, and she was promoted within 6 weeks to the position of quality control director. And she was made accountable for the quality procedures at Rural Water.
Next one, Shane.
Now, when you got hired, you said you were hired to be the receptionist, and then a month later, you became the director of quality control. And I assume you've never been a director of quality control before?
No.
She admitted it in her deposition, in her testimony. She admitted she wasn't qualified to be a quality control director. Not her fault. The company put her in that position. but they should never have put her in that position. And this wasn't the only person that they had a problem with as quality control director. We also called Mr. Desitel. They printed cards saying he was the quality control director, but it was just a title. They didn't even tell him he was the quality control director. He thought he was the production manager. Here's his testimony.
They gave me a title. They gave me a title of director of quality, but that wasn't me. I was a supervisor. So you were called the director. You had a title of director of quality control, but you really weren't. No, I was not. Is there someone else that was a director of quality control? Not that I'm aware of. So you didn't have any training in quality control, correct? No. You didn't do anything? No, I didn't.
Obviously, this company was not serious about the quality control. And they knew that this was a problem, because remember Costco sent the auditing team in there? This is what the auditing team said. No qualified individual to provide a level of competency necessary for production of clean and safe product. Note that the QA director, I think that was Mrs. Converse, has just resigned, okay? So they knew that they had a quality control problem, and they didn't do anything about it. Now, we talked a lot about HACCP. Again, that's the industry standard for how to make sure you're doing things right when you're making a product. Back to Mr. Desitel. He told you that they didn't have a HACCP program. Go ahead.
We did real water at what's referred to as HACCP, HACCP program. Not that I'm aware of. Did you get any training or what? No, I did not. And did they have operating procedures of how to make them? Not that I can remember. No, I did not.
Think about this for a minute. This product was sold nationwide, from California to Florida, in all the big stores, Whole Foods, Costco, and this was how it was made. That's why we think they should be held liable for punitive damages. That's the second reason. Third, the investigation of the customer complaints. So Dr. Hudd explained why bottle manufacturers investigate customer complaints. Pretty obvious.
Why do you document complaints from your own customers?
Right, so I mentioned before, this is a very important tool to the quality scheme because it's a feedback. What goes out into the marketplace, this is what customers actually see. So they're giving you very valuable feedback. And you need to do something about it, particularly when you see 2 or more complaints about the same lot or the same production time period. And then that's a huge red flag that something is really wrong with the product. And you've got to figure out what the root cause of the problem is and fix it. Corrective actions, that's what a corrective action is for. But in the case of Real Water, they didn't have a consumer complaint management scheme. They had consumer complaints. They were receiving them, and basically they were being run through the sales part of the organization, not the quality part. The quality directors didn't even see the consumer complaints. They were restricted from that. So the salespeople were basically giving the customer who complained free water. And maybe going out to the field and picking up a bottle and smelling it, and if they didn't smell anything bad, well, everything's okay. Well, that's not the way the customer complaint management works. You can dismiss a complaint, but you've got to investigate it, and you've got to figure out, particularly when you see multiple similar complaints about the same lot or just about your product out there, you need to figure out what's going on. And in this case, there were multiple complaints, and nobody in the quality realm of the business was enabled to do anything about it. They didn't even get the chance to see them.
The quality assurance directors did not even see the customer complaints. We know this is true because Patty Converse told us. Shane?
First of all, I assume all the customer alert forms were filed in one big place, right?
I would think so. I never saw them.
Okay. You're the director of quality assurance.
Right.
She's the director of quality assurance, never saw the complaints. And she also told you what the procedure there was. The procedure wasn't to investigate and find out what's wrong with your product. The procedure was to have the salespeople give people free water. Next, Shane.
Okay, so when you received written complaints about your water causing someone an illness such as diarrhea, the solution was to send them free water?
Correct.
Okay, the solution was not to investigate as to whether there's a potential problem with the water?
Correct.
Okay, and in retrospect, you think that was a good quality control procedure?
No, sir.
Now, we had some very serious complaints in this case. Let's start with Steve Watkins. Remember, we brought him to the stand. He was the person in 2018 that was at Desert Springs Hospital for a week, and then his wife wrote the email to them saying the doctor says to quit drinking this alkaline water. Okay, that was the complaint, and we know that they knew about it because they emailed it to Real Water. So this is Mr. Watkins' testimony.
Now, after your wife sent this email to Real Water saying that you'd been in the hospital for 2 weeks and the doctor wants you to stop drinking the alkaline water, did Real Water contact you?
No, sir.
They sent an investigator to interview you to discuss your problems?
No, sir.
Shane, do we have an email too? This is email. We've showed it to you before. There's no dispute here. They got it. Okay. Didn't show it to the quality assurance directors. Why give it to them? No dispute, though, that they got this email. They did absolutely nothing. But we had 2 different employees from Real Water that told you what they should have done, okay? If they had been a responsible company. Here's what Mike Bush said. Remember, he was the one that worked at Nestle for a while, and then he went over to Real Water. Go ahead. Oh, we don't have the Bush cut? Okay. All right. And Shane does a great job, but you know, we're doing a lot of this on the fly. So what he said was that, and I'll read it to you. Question: if Nestle got a report that one of their customers drank their water and was in the hospital for 2 weeks, they would shut the assembly line down, correct? Answer: right. That's what Mr. Bush said. This is what Mr. Desitel said. He's the supposed quality assurance director that they didn't tell him he was the quality assurance director. Go ahead.
In your understanding of the manufacturing practices, what would you have done if you had been given those customer complaints?
Stop production.
And why?
Investigate why. Why are they having those issues? What's going on with it? Who, what, when, where, and why?
And why didn't they stop the production? Why didn't they investigate these complaints? Mr. Desitel told you exactly why. There was an instruction to all the employees: do not stop production. Keep producing the water. Go ahead, Shane.
Did you have a conversation with the owners of Real Water in general about whether or not you should stop production?
Yes, I had. I did different ones, yes.
And what did they say?
They said in no way, in no shape or form will you stop production.
And when you stopped it the one time, why?
Because of cleanliness. We have to clean up good GMPs, right? So you have to clean up your equipment and sanitize it to make sure it is good to go for production. So I stopped it, and I was told not to stop, continue production.
Who was that?
Blaine Adams, or Jones, excuse me.
Blaine Jones.
Blaine Jones.
We have a second one, Shane? Okay. All right. You will not stop production for any reason. That's what they were instructed to do, and that's what they did. They just kept making water, no matter what kind of customer complaint they had. And we had some serious complaints, okay? Here is one that we've talked about a little bit. And the reason we're focused on this one is because the case involves rocket fuel in the bottled water. And what does this complaint complain about? A strong chemical smell in one complaint. In the other complaint, a gasoline-like substance in the water product. And remember, Dr. Hutt said if you get 2 complaints from the same lot, that is a huge red flag. So here's 2 complaints: strong chemical smell, gasoline-like substance, within days of each other, both of May 2014. It was at this time they should have shut down the production, tried to figure out what was wrong, and at a minimum, spend the $200 to do the GCMS test. And if they had done that, they would have found what the FDA found. In 2014, they would have found that there was hydrazine in the product. None of these people would be here today. None of them. None of them would be here today. But that's not what happened. So there's 15 different customer complaints and evidence. We haven't gone through all of them. You know, we had 3 different customers, Dorn, Kessler, and Fisher, talked to you about it. We've showed you the chemical ones, but these are the ones in Watkins, we brought him on the stand. I mean, they didn't do anything. They did not do anything because there was no investigation. They were just sending people free water. And this is Dr. Hutt again. And we were lucky to have Dr. Hutt because you could tell her qualifications. It was pretty amazing. Go ahead, Dr. Hutt.
But what was alarming here is we have, again, this is May of 2014, and we have 3 complaints with the same sort of type of complaint. 2 particularly alarming. A strong chemical smell in the bottle. Gasoline-like substance in a blue liter bottle. Water shouldn't smell like gasoline. So there is something wrong. A strong chemical smell. Gasoline is that chemical smell. Cloudy substance in the water. Something's going on here. And Real Water's response was insufficient, in my opinion.
Let's have the next one, Shane.
Check that as well. And if you see this, again, gasoline type smell, which is not part of water, shouldn't be there, then you're going to do what we call non-targeted screening analysis. Now send this out to a laboratory and say, help me understand what is the substance. I don't know. But I keep getting consumer complaints about it, and I want to know. And they're going to run a series of different tests, which are going to look for different compounds, and they're going to tell you.
Okay, and let's skip over to the 4th area, the delay of any recall. So, Shane, we're going to skip that one, Hutt. So we know that in October 15th, they had not 1, not 2, but dozens of complaints. Shane, can we have this? When the FDA came out to do the investigation, they posed questions to Real Water, and Real Water gave them written answers back. This is one of the written answers that the FDA got from Real Water. So during this October time period, October 15th, they were getting so many complaints, they were having 25 to 30 people calling up and reporting about the odd tasting water. 12 to 15 canceled their home delivery programs. October 15th, okay? This is when Mr. Brown he was a Real Water employee. He was tasked with being the complaint specialist for a while. So October 15th. And then worse, we had the experience with Blaine Jones, October 5th. He gets acute liver failure. We've already talked about that. That's 10 days before this. And then we get to Mr. Randolph, who was the vice president of sales. This was the testimony from him about how he begged Real Water to do a recall.
So then, do you at some time form an opinion that the only similarity between these people would be Real Water?
Yeah, when I had a conversation with the owner's son, because I know he was became very ill, and it probably was in October, and I thought it was COVID, and they just didn't want anybody to know. But when my nephew and another friend got sick, and then the phone calls that these guys were receiving in the office, then I asked the owner's son, his name was Blaine, I just said, I need to talk to you on a personal level. I know you were sick, can you tell me what happened? And he started describing everything that was going on, and it was identical to what my nephew and my brother-in-law best friend was experiencing. And so at that point, I told Blaine, I said, it's the water. I said, the only thing you guys have in common is you drink the water. Because even though my brother-in-law's best friend, comes around the family all the time, but he and my nephew don't really, they don't jive like that. They're a different age group, everything else. So at that point, I told Blaine, I said, you got to do a recall, man. There's something in the water. And that was probably beginning of November, something like that, middle of November, whatever it was. he said, no, it was, I first thought it was the water, but then I try to remember everything that he said, trying to justify that it wasn't the water. And then I just told him, I said, Blank, listen, we're getting numerous phone calls, according to, I think the gentleman's name was Anthony as well. They're fielding so many phone calls of people complaining. I know people that got sick. You were sick. You guys don't know each other. So it has to be the water.
It has to be the water. And he was right. It was the water. Okay? It was the water. And maybe they didn't know specifically what was in the water at that point in time, but they knew it was getting people sick, gravely ill. Mr. Jones himself has got acute liver failure. He's in the hospital, going to hell and back himself, and he's not warning other people after being begged by the sales manager. We submit that that's just outrageous. And it's consequential. Okay, next, Shane.
So you, not only after having the first conversation requesting a recall, you had follow-up conversations with him, and you were using your words, numerous conversations, all the way into the beginning of the year, and he still didn't do a recall.
Yeah, because we did talk about what reminded me, he didn't want me to go out and concentrate himself. So we had conversations about, obviously, the problems that were going on, as well as how could we do something going forward.
So let's think about this. You're having your nephew get sick, the best friend of your brother-in-law, people that you're hearing about through the operations at Henderson, and despite all of that, including him getting sick, Mr. Jones getting sick, he's still trying to push the concentrate.
Yes.
Despite knowing that everybody is sick, including himself, they're not doing a recall. They're trying to sell more product. They're trying to get this program going where they're selling the concentrate. And I said it's consequential. Shane, can I have my chart? No recall in October, none in November, none in December, none in January, none in February. And why is that important? I've already shown you the dates. Go ahead, Shane. Oh, excuse me. See, this is my fault, Shane, not your fault. Okay. So this is the October 15th. Let's hear from what Dr. Hutt says they should have done. Pretty obvious, but let's hear Dr. Hutt.
Okay, and on October 15th, 2020, did Real Water do a timely recall?
No, they did not.
Okay, what should they have done?
They should have recalled the product far before October 2020, when they were getting these complaints and found that they didn't know what was going on in the marketplace, but they knew, or I should say in their processing plan, but they knew they had a problem. They should have taken action way before 2020, but the fact is that there was a lot of evidence in 2020, Blaine Jones himself, when he was in the hospital with liver damage, drinking his own water. He still would not pull the trigger to do a recall. But that was what could have gotten the water out of the hands of people who were harmed by it subsequent to October 2020.
Okay, and what people were harmed by it subsequent to October 2020? 10 of the plaintiffs in this case. Nicole, Nigel, Vanya, Ginger, Carrie, Glenn, Cheryl, Abraham, Carolyn Strong, Kathleen Gacias. All of these were harmed after they should have done a recall. The others in the case were harmed after, like I said before, they had this alert to the chemical smell, the gasoline-like substance. They didn't do anything about that either. And so this is the fourth reason we submit that they should be held liable for punitive damages. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I want to thank you very much for your jury service. Like I said at the beginning, the juries make this system work. Okay, this is what America's founded upon. I know the judge feels strongly about it. I feel strongly about it. And I sincerely want to thank you one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Can we approach? Yes, you may, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is what we're going to do. Next up, Mr. Parker, we're going to take just a quick recess for a men's room or ladies' room break, come straight back. And then it's my understanding Mr. Parker is going to start his closing argument. Is that correct, Mr. Parker?
That's correct, Your Honor. Thank you.
And this will be very quick. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject matter connected with this case, or to read, watch, or listen to any report or commentary on the trial by any persons connected with this matter, or by any medium of information, including without limitations, newspaper, television, radio. Remember social media prohibition. Last but not least, do not form or express any opinion in this matter until the subject matter is given to you for deliberations.
All rise for the court to adjourn. Real quick one, Your Honor. Department 16 will now come back to order. Thank you.
Man, sounds about to beat somebody up on that one.
We're on the record now.
All right, and let's go ahead and set forth our appearances quickly.
Yeah, good morning, Your Honor. Teddy Park on behalf of the plaintiff.
Morning, Your Honor. Robert Eglin on behalf of the plaintiff.
Morning, Your Honor. Eric Peckerman and Will Katz for plaintiffs.
Good morning, Maggie DeFederico on behalf of the plaintiff. Good morning, Brandon Smith on behalf of the plaintiff.
Tyler Watson and Eric Freeman on behalf of defendants.
All right, and Mr. Park, you ready to proceed, sir?
I am, Your Honor. You ready, Shane?
Ready to look for them?
All right. You made me look good?
Yeah, we'll help each other out with that.
Good.
It's gonna be a little roller coaster here?
No,
No.
No?
It's gonna be a Ferrari on the 215.
That's what I'm talking about.
A functional Ferrari.
In fact, we were trying to think of some theme music I could play when I come up. You know, like a boxing match, yeah, some kind of theme music. We couldn't agree on anything.
I'll go with it.
There's some options there.
Yeah, but we don't think the jury likes as much hip hop as we do.
Oh, yeah. I could come out to some, let's see, Hootie and Blowfish. Mix it up a little bit. Darius and I graduated from high school together, you know?
You went to high school with him?
Yeah, we graduated together.
Now you pursue all this country music.
All rise for the jury.
What's up?
Did he come here soon? Or just came here or something?
Absolutely.
Please be seated. Thank you.
All right, do the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
We do, Your Honor.
We do.
All right, and it's my understanding, Mr. Parker, you're ready to proceed, sir, is that correct?
I am, Your Honor.
Okay, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. May I proceed, John?
Yes, you may.
Good morning. Good morning. So let me give you a rundown of where we're going. So you've heard Mr. Kemp's closing. I'm going to do a closing. After I'm done, Mr. Eglet's going to do a closing. Then the defense will do a closing. Then we get rebuttal. So I don't know if you guys were expecting that. Typically, the rebuttal closing is shorter, and typically we'll do an abbreviated version of what we've done, of course, addressing anything that the defense brings up, or fails to bring up, perhaps. Understood? So I just wanted you to know what's coming forward. Someone mentioned during voir dire that they admired Keanu Reeves. I don't know if you guys remember that. And there was a movie, I don't know if you remember this, whoever said it, I'm not going to point any fingers, called The Devil's Advocate. Remember that movie? And in that movie, Keanu would be nervous before he went into court. And you remember Keanu's in the movie, De Niro's in the movie, and he says, De Niro, I guess, complimented him on this. I'm sorry, Al Pacino, thank you, said that you never see him come. They never see you coming. They never see you coming, and that part of that movie stuck with me. Unlike Keanu, I don't get nervous coming into court. I get excited about it. I'm pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be in front of you. And it's because earlier on in our country, some of us weren't allowed to be here. We just weren't. Early on in this country. And in fact, most of you weren't allowed to sit where you're sitting early on in this country. Women, minorities, you weren't allowed to do it. And so for me, I'm more blessed, I feel, that I can come here and represent these plaintiffs and that you're here able to decide this case. So I want to say this because Mr. Kemp said it when he was sitting down, how thankful he is and we are of you being here. I wanted to say right up front that I am blessed to be here on behalf of these plaintiffs, and I think we're all blessed to be able to sit and stand where we are today. With that in mind, I also pulled the short straw today. I get the opportunity to explain the science behind this case to you. And I'm glad I got a chance to do it in the morning, because in the afternoon, you guys would find it very difficult to stay awake. So let's get into the science, okay? Shane. So this is the rule of the case, and I will tell you, the judge has already defined this rule for us. We know that real water is defective, unreasonably dangerous, and caused all the injuries to these plaintiffs. Your job is to hold them responsible for all their injuries, past and future. Understood? Next slide, Shane. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because Mr. Kemp did. But one thing I wanted to point out, because we didn't point this out the last time, is that there are complaints from Oregon all the way to Tampa, Florida, from one part of this country all the way to the other end, top to bottom. And the investigation related to the children focused on Nevada, Arizona, and California. So I want you guys geographically to keep that in mind, just how pervasive this product was in the marketplace. Understood? Next slide, Shane. We know that the FDA determined that real water was adulterated, which means unsafe, filthy, defective, and insanitary. One thing that surprised me, Real Water has tried to defend themselves by saying they've done tests. And like Mr. Kemp said, one of the test results is actually in the jury notebook. What shocked me was that Dr. Hutt indicated that even the tests that they performed came back indicating that their product was filthy. I want you to hear exactly what she said.
Well, they said they tested it, but you've seen no test report for this product, right?
There is a test report for this product. It has coliforms.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Positive for coliforms.
And coliforms are what again?
It's fecal matter, feces.
Okay. And that's probably not a good thing to put in bottled water.
No, and the process that Real Water claimed they had 7 steps of filtration. They actually put it on their label. We have 7 steps of filtration. Well, somehow fecal matter coliforms made it through 7 steps of filtration. They didn't have a good process.
So even the test that they brag about, that Real Water touts in its favor, was discovering feces in its product. And yet, no stop of production, no recall, no investigation. When you find feces in your product. Next slide, Shane. So I'm not going to go back or spend much time on this other than to remind you that every test taken of the Real Water product came back for hydrazine. Every test. And I'm going to hit this a little harder later in this presentation because there was a question asked by Mr. Dixon, I believe, that really drills down on this issue. But I'm giving you that up front so you know it's coming. Next slide, Shane. So let's talk about the science. Everyone remembers Dr. Najim, hopefully. It was earlier on. That was one of my first witnesses I took in this trial. And he was the water quality expert. Real Water, you would think, would have brought their own expert. But they didn't. They didn't bring any water quality expert to contest, refute, contradict his testimony. Now, this is the science. These are the 2 articles, the only 2 that we're aware of, that deal specifically with hydrazine in drinking water. The only 2. Fairly long, but the only two. And I say that because I want you to understand just how slim the peer-reviewed information is on hydrazine, because it should never be in drinking water. Period. These documents were brought through our experts' research and investigation back from 2006 to 2011. You did not see an expert from Real Water come in to explain these reports, address them, anything. Next slide, Shane. So in the 2006 report, Dr. Najam's description of hydrazine indicates that, back it up. Okay, there we go. Hydrazine is a potent carcinogen with a 10-6 cancer risk level. And again, these are nanograms here. This is going to go back to Mr. Dixon's question. And he further explains that the US EPA has decided that it's a probable human carcinogen. When administered to various animals, hydrazine and or hydrazine sulfate induced various lung and liver carcinomas. And I bring that up because if you remember in the two articles, which we'll get to in a little while, the 1971 article dealing with the machinist who died, and the 2018 article dealing with the F-16 crew member who became sick, they discuss the effects of hydrazine on their bodies. Next slide. I brought this up because the GCMS was the piece of equipment used in 2006 is a part of this article. And recall, the FDA used that same equipment to determine that hydrazine had, that Real Water had hydrazine in it a couple of months after starting their investigation in 2021. This equipment was around when Dr. Najam was still studying in school. He said it was around in the 1960s. Go on, Shane. This is the 2011 report. Again, prepared by Dr. Najam. Go right ahead, Shane. Once again, this report deals with him testing on behalf of public water suppliers, tap water in California. And what do they use? The GCMS, the same piece of equipment that the FDA used. Go right ahead, Shane. And he did full-scale sampling for this water treatment plant. Next slide. And I brought this up just again to show you that when he did this for public water suppliers, he used the same format, trying to determine how their water is created. The same thing he did in determining how Real Water ultimately included hydrazine in its product. And I say that to you because I don't know how many times we heard Mr. Johnson speak of treating versus non-treating. And we're going to get to this. We brought you an expert that does this for a living. He didn't do anything different when doing this, when analyzing this case. This is what he does then for the benefit of research in the drinking water community, for the country, for bottling companies, and that's what he did here. Next slide, Shane. So I put this up just to, again, show you the GCMS and also give you, because it's been a long time. This is one of the few first witnesses we had. Hopefully that face helps you remember who he was, his qualifications, and the fact that his approach was identical to the FDA's. Go right ahead, Shane.
Hydrazine is probably one of the most studied and researched chemicals as an industrial chemical. And the reason is that hydrazine is what we call an energetic chemical, but that means it's a fuel.
topic of research during the Cold War between the Soviets and the US, trying to do research who can study hydrazine more and use it more for rocketry. But it's a chemical that, when ignited, it breaks down very quickly to nitrogen gas, so it produces a lot of thrust. And so it's been very much studied as a defense issue, and is right now, as I mentioned, still used. It's not used to launch rockets, but it's used to maneuver rockets in space. If you see a rocket with a little puff on the side that kind of moves it in one direction, most of the time that's hydrazine that is stored in there and is used for maneuvering.
I brought this up because I don't want you to be confused in terms of the science. When Dr. Najim is speaking about the research done on hydrazine as a propellant, a rocket propellant, he never said it was studied in terms of human consumption. And the reason why that's important, and I want you to consider this as you listen to the rest of my presentation and whatever Real Water has to say, there is no litany of literature on how hydrazine affects the human body. There's only two. And it's because, and I think we've heard this many times, hydrazine, if you were to test it on humans, it'd be unethical because we know it's a known liver toxin. Bless you. You can't do it. So the only thing they can do is test on animals. And that's what they did. And so when you hear any criticism, which I believe we heard from Dr. Robin, well, we know what it does on animals. We can't say it does that on humans. Well, what is he suggesting? What was he suggesting when he said that? Because you have your test lab right there. Everyone in that gallery, 13 plaintiffs, and the 50 or so that Dr. Alsina said he actually reviewed records on that all got acute liver failure. The 46 that Dr. Hudson said that he's aware of, that he reviewed the medical records on. The 5 babies who all received it, who drank through bottles or however, real water that were flown to Salt Lake City. If you want to look at a test sample, there it is. But to do it intentionally would be unethical because you don't knowingly give people rocket fuel. You don't give them hydrazine. So I'm putting that out there so you understand the science between the research done for industrial purposes versus research you could not do on a human being. Next slide, Shay. I promised this to Mr. Dixon.
So we have one more, a doctor from Mr. Dixon, number 4. Quote, during your research of hydrazine, how much of it would have to be in normal water to be considered harmful?
So we're back to the harmful question, and that's really where that 10 number is. You know, we all need numbers to work with. You know, what is okay, what's not okay. Right now, that is the number that's out there for us to judge whether, you know what, I need to do something to reduce it, or that's below what that minimum floor is.
So I followed up, if you remember.
Questions, any follow-up, Mr. Porter?
Just one, Dr. Najim, given your responses to those jury questions, which are all very good, 10 minus 6 is the number you've given us as a threshold for concern about health. Based upon the test results we've seen, the Eurofins testing and then the FDA testing on the concentrate, those results were 1 billion times greater than 10 to the minus 6. The ones in the concentrate, yes.
So 1 billion times greater. And this proves that lawyers don't always ask the best questions. Because we had a great question and we followed up, and it actually, and I think it educated everyone just how much hydrazine was in those bottles when these plaintiffs were consuming it. 1 billion times greater than the carcinogen level, 10 to the minus 6. Now this is, I want to go to the next slide. He speaks more about the findings from the FDA.
Tell me what your opinion is, doctor, on the levels of hydrogen determined. It's 1.44, 1.75, and I'll show you the third shortly.
Well, I'm going to remind you back of the 10 to the minus 6 cancer risk level. That was 10 nanograms per liter. But these levels, the unit is milligram per milliliter. So I need to visually relate how they relate to each other. Milligram per liter is like a gram per liter. So that 10 nanogram, a nanogram is 1 billionth of a gram. A gram is 1 billionth nanogram. So when I say, when we look at these numbers, 1.44, basically gram per liter. That's 1.44 billion nanograms per liter.
When you consider the 10 minus 6 over these hydrazine findings, have you ever seen hydrazine levels at this rate?
In the drinking water world that I work with, no, we talk about nanograms per liter levels, not these levels. These are, as I mentioned, that's 1.44 billion nanograms per liter.
So that's using easy numbers for the rest of us.
Yes.
Those of us who are not mathematicians. Is that 1,000 times more per milliliter than nanograms, or 1 billion times more?
It's 1 billion times more.
And then when you go through 3 through 7, it actually shows the results at 1.1, 1.6, 11, 300, and 39. What does that mean? Or can you quantify that for the jury?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, this unit of measurement is basically 1,000 nanograms per liter. So, what this is 1.1 micrograms per liter, which is 1.1 thousand nanograms per liter. All the way down, the higher number was 300 micrograms per liter, which is 300,000 nanograms per liter. So these are the quantifiable amounts of hydrogen in the samples that they analyzed.
And in terms of this, we know how high, we quantified how high these samples were from the FDA and the concentration. In terms of the retail bottles, are these also extremely high quantities of hydrazine to be consumed by purchasers?
Extremely is a relative term by anybody's measure. I would say that I would not drink the water that has these hydrogen levels.
And is it because these hydrogen levels are dangerous?
They are certain, this is a chemical that is harmful above a certain very low threshold, and these are all above that threshold. So to that end,
yes, sir.
We do not drink that water because of that.
He made it very plain. He would not drink that water. It is 1 billion times higher than any threshold he's ever seen in any capacity. Next slide, Shane. So this is just a picture to remind you of the process. Now, Mr. Kemp went over the process. His had the juice approach to it. I like to show you the science because I want you to consider this approach taken by Dr. Najim to the one he did for the water treatment plant. Very scientific, analytical approach. That's what he does. And as a result, you can compare his work, be it in the field or on that stand. You can see some consistency in how he evaluates water products. And he testified that he'd never seen water manufactured using some applied electrolysis or using titanium tubes. Never. None of his clients, municipalities, cities, or counties have ever used this type of process. In high enough quantities, hydrazine can smell fishy or have an ammonia smell and taste and can appear as an oily sheen in water products. I bring that up because hopefully, without me showing you all of those claims, all those complaints, that's what they found. Fishy smell, chemical smell, gasoline smell, and an oily sheen on the water product. Next slide. He also talked about how hydrazine degrades over time. He says it's a volatile product or a chemical, and over time, the amount of it will dissipate. But what he also told us, that based upon his opinion, the water that these plaintiffs drank, in all likelihood, was between 2 to 10 times higher than what was reported and found by the FDA and the Eurofins testing laboratory. Think about that. What they found was 1 billion times higher than the threshold. Now multiply that by 2 or 10. That's how high the hydrazine content was in the water consumed by these plaintiffs. Next slide, Shane. Go right ahead.
Have you seen any documentation, information from your review of the records that Real Water did any additional testing, GCMS testing, on their product, despite years of medical complaints?
I have not seen any testing work.
So when Mr. Freeman asked you whether or not someone said there was no testing, it is fair to say that Real Water did not do any non-targeted GCMS testing, the same kind that the FDA did on this water product.
That is my understanding. My answer to the question was about just the statement, did Real Water do any testing? Yes, you can test for pH. That doesn't mean anything for our conversation. But I was trying to be true to the question.
All right, so let's make it true, fully true to the question. When it comes to testing for liver toxins like hydrazine, did they do a single test that would have found hydrazine?
Not that I know.
You know, listening to that, I was a little excited, it appears. But the point's well taken, I would say. Inside your jury notebook is a bacterial test. But bacterial tests won't discover hydrazine. Has anyone ever heard that phrase? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. When will you ever get to the truth of the problem if you keep doing the same things and you know the problem's continuing? 2013, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. All of those years go by, they're doing the same thing. Because what they're doing is they don't want to find a problem. Because what? They want to keep production going. They have no interest in shutting down production, or as Ms. Converse said, if you remember, on Mondays, the only thing they wanted to know about was how many trucks were leaving. They had no interest in figuring out what was causing their customers' medical problems at all. And that's why they kept running tests that would never find the problem, ever. Next slide, Shane.
If any of your clients notice hydrazine or notice some complaints, a continuous line of complaints coming in regarding their health in relationship to the water they're drinking, would you advise them to test the water?
That is the first thing you would advise them.
And if you were doing this for Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Los Angeles, would you advise them to retain someone like yourself or some form of consultant to do a thorough examination or investigation of what was causing the problem with their water?
Yes, I would.
Did Real Water introduce a witness on this stand that came and said, Real Water was so concerned so concerned about these complaints that they hired us. We're consultants, and we tested their water, and we got to the heart of it. Did you hear that? Did you hear from anyone on behalf of Real Water that actually said anything about doing an investigation to get to the heart of what was causing all of these problems? Not a single person, not a single Real Water employee, not a single Real Water owner, not a single Real Water paid consultant. No one. This also goes to, this next slide goes also to, I hate to pick on you, Mr. Dixon, but I had to make sure this question was answered for everyone. If we could hear, this is Real Water's expert, Real Water's expert, an epidemiologist, scientist who studies the outbreak of injury and attempts to determine general causation. Real Water hired Mr. Goldsmith, not anyone on this side of the room. Go right ahead, Shane. Go right ahead.
Do you have any information as you sit here today that would tell us whether those retail bottles with the hydrazine you just mentioned had hydrazine above the toxicity requirement?
No, I mean, this is what they reported.
Stop right there, Shane.
They should have had.
Do you have any information?
Go back up a little bit. Just a little bit more. Bingo, stop right there, stop. They should have 0. 0. Not 10 minus 6, but 0. There should be no hydrazine in water. So although there is a threshold where it becomes a carcinogen, and we understand that, the bottom line from their own expert is there should be 0 hydrazine detectable in drinking water. Go right ahead, Shane.
Limit of detection, at least 4, if not 4, at least 4 the 5 positive. Says to me that, I don't want to use this term, but this is the smoking gun that we, concerned with the epidemiology and field investigations, and this matches up with what the FDA has found too in other samples of the concentrate that, again, notwithstanding that there may be other contaminants that are detected or found, but this does appear to me to make it much more of a company-wide kind of a concern. And it says also to me that the 5-gallon container appears not to be the only source of the contamination. This tends to give me a fuller picture. It suggests clearly to me that the toxic exposure possibly leading to acute liver failure was not solely confined to the 5-gallon home delivery side of the business.
In his statement, he made it clear that not just those 5-gallon containers, but also these had hydrazine. All of them. Business, the entire business. That's what he said. Your Honor, can I publish this to the jury?
You can.
Thank you. So I just published, and everyone will get a chance to look at it, of course, the Real Water container, the retail bottle. Now, I would have asked or indicated that Real Water didn't come in with an expert to dispute what he says, that there should be 0 hydrazine in the water. But we all know that's actually Real Water's expert. that they chose not to bring to the stand. Dane, can you bring up Exhibit 15, page 8? So I want you to see this because I want you to see how Real Water was marketing its product. All bottled water companies claim their water is the best and the healthiest. However, there are 3 important questions you should ask before buying bottled water. Your personal health and the health of your children depend upon it. That's what Real Water, how it was marketing its products. Well, we know the children, people bought it thinking it would help their children. We know what happened to those children. We also know what happened to so many people. And they're doing that despite knowing of all these complaints of finding feces in their product. But this is how they're marketing their product. If that doesn't scream indifference, a blatant or conscious disregard for the health of your customers and the public. Next slide, Shane. So we're going to switch from the science of the quality of the water to the effects of hydrazine on the body. Everybody with me? All right. This is the Loma Linda report. I'm not going to go through it. We went through it before with Dr. Hudson. The only thing I want to point out, 4 patients all had biopsies, 3 of which bridging fibrosis, periportal fibrosis, and pericellular fibrosis, all having very similar symptomology as the plaintiffs in this case. The biopsies present 75% permanent injuries from drinking Real Water with as few as 2 weeks worth of exposure. That's what we know from the literature. Again, this is all there is. Look how thin this is. That's all there is in terms of reports, peer-reviewed literature on hydrazine on the body. The reason I bring that up to you, ladies and gentlemen, Tylenol. You know, may I publish this, demonstrative purposes?
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes.
Thank you. Tylenol is one of the biggest culprits for DILI, drug-induced liver injury. And you will notice on that box, it actually warns right up front, liver. Now, I've published the Real Water. Did you see a warning? Any indication to these people, children and adults, if I had the slide back up, about their livers? The next biggest culprit to your liver. You know what I published? Alcohol.
No objection.
All right. I'm sorry. even if you want to. It's been a long trial, I know. I got the least amount of alcohol by volume by providing that one. The point is, alcohol has a warning on it. Did you see any warning on that bottle of Real Water? In fact, you see just the opposite. They're saying it's the healthiest. And before you buy any other bottled water, think about you and your children. Next slide, Shane. This is Dr. Robin, Real Water's expert.
Now, liver biopsies, you don't do those unless there's a good reason to do it. Liver biopsies are not done unless there's a good reason to do the liver biopsy. Correct? That's correct, yes. Any cooperation? Yes. And it's kind of risky when you have high INR? Yes. Because people can bleed out. That potential exists. And it's a critical operation because there's no anesthetic, right?
There's local anesthetic, but yes.
So I brought that up because in the Loma Linda report, we had 4 people, 4 patients that actually got biopsies. And we know in this case, we had 3 that had biopsies. We know when it came to the children, there was 1 who had a biopsy. All of them went through what Real Waters experts said, testified to under oath, is a painful procedure. Not to be confused, as Mr. Johnson said, with stubbing your toe. It also goes along with all the risks, bleeding out, death, some form of paralysis. And all of them went through that. The ones I mentioned, of course, went through that. But I put that out there because when you evaluate Dr. Robbins' testimony, he said or suggested that these plaintiffs don't have permanent injuries. How can you make that decision? Can he see through their bodies? Can he see through their clothing, their skin, and look at their liver and determine that they don't have permanent injuries? The only way you can do it is based on biopsies. That's the gold standard. And without doing one, how can he say? It's because he wants you to prepare them for the best, as opposed to preparing them for the worst. That's it. Next slide, Shane. So the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report came out in 2020. That's the only other paper that we have on hydrazine's effect based upon this investigation. And based upon that report in 2020, they discussed what happened to the 5 children. They discussed the death of the woman in her 60s from Real Water. That's what this report reflects. Next. And this is the chart from the MMWR with our clients superimposed on that chart. What's important about this chart is that they were aware of, during this time period, 20 probable cases throughout the 3 states. We know of 50 or so that Dr. Alsina has researched, 46 or so that Dr. Hudson has reviewed. We know of 37 terminations based upon medical conditions that the FDA turned out. We're over 100 people affected by this. Go right ahead, Shane. So finally, I wanted you to see this 1971 article. This is the actual article dealing with the machinist, the 59-year-old machinist who died. And so he was 59 years old. He was exposed to hydrazine, not drinking it, just exposed to it once per week for 6 months. And this is what we have. A previously healthy, for the past 6 months, he has handled hydrazine once a week. According to his wife, the man had been tired and always had conjunctivitis and tremor on the day of handling hydrazine on the following day. Just handling it. Pull back a little bit, Shane. All right, thank you. And this should kind of remind you of the symptomology of our plaintiffs. On the 6th day, there was upper abdominal pains, black feces, and was admitted to the hospital. He also suffered from jaundice and incoherence. That's exactly what our plaintiffs have spoken about. Almost identical symptomology. The other thing I wanted to point out, because this goes back to the 10-6 in terms of carcinogen, go back to the pictures of the organs. So this is the chest. And the chest cavity is being affected. Go to the next figure 2 and 3. Big thank you right there. The lungs are being affected. the kidney has been affected, and then go down, and finally the liver. All by just handling it 1 day a week for 6 months. These people were drinking it for days upon days upon days upon months. That's the difference. And it led to necrosis. Now I'll pull this up because, as you remember, Ms. Bourdonnais suffered hepatocyte necrosis. And Dr. Robin and Dr. Alsina, everyone agrees that's the death of liver cells. What proof did Dr. Robin provide that any of those dead liver cells regenerated? Did he provide some form of biopsy result a month later, a year later, showing regeneration of those dead cells? Because all the doctors agree hydrazine kills liver cells. Keep moving. Okay. And this is the article related to the airmen. And this is an F-16. As you can see, this is a 2018. So from 1971 to 2018. Those are the only 2 reports on hydrazine with humans. That's it. And so, go to the next page of this report, Shane. And these are both very short reports. And this will actually be an evidence. So if you want to look at it when you're deliberating, you can actually look at these reports yourself. Go down a little bit. No, I'm sorry, go up. You're right. I'm sorry. Under 1 minute of exposure. That's it. Under 1 minute. And he had immediate problems. Go to the conclusion. Go up, go up, go up, go. Right? Go. There you go. Stop right there. We recommend that all physicians treating people exposed to hydrazine in industry, the Air Force or the Navy, be aware of the diversity in symptoms and consider the possibility of significant poisoning. Also in asymptomatic patients. So even if they're not suffering outwardly, significant poisoning. Did Dr. Robin point to a single page on the article that supports his position? But let me tell you what we were able to get out of Dr. Robin. I'm sorry, out of Dr. Alsina in terms of this issue. Go right ahead, Shane. And from our research, or from your research, on the effects of hydrazine on the human liver, it can cause or kill liver cells, right?
Yes, anytime any of these patients will get liver injuries, they're going to kill liver cells. So it's not uncommon.
And so each of these plaintiffs in this case, and of course they all consumed real water, they all suffered acute liver injuries, they would have suffered the death of liver cells because of their consumption of real water, correct?
They all did. They all had hyperaminases. That's what the hepatocytes are doing. They're dying and they're regenerating this.
Okay. And in terms of the death of those cells, they can be quantified in a biopsy, correct?
The biopsy doesn't look for that. The biopsy looks at patterns. They don't count how many, just like fat. No, I mean, they count fat percentages, but they don't count necrosis percentages.
But it shows on the biopsy.
It shows on the biopsy, yes.
And without having a later biopsy, you cannot say definitively that the dead cells have regenerated, correct?
I cannot say that.
But what we do know, and what you can say to a reasonable degree of medical probability and certainty, is that consuming hydrazine-laced real water result in the death of liver cells for all these patients, correct? And no expert, without the benefit of having a later biopsy, can tell you that those dead cells have regenerated, correct?
No, I mean, you cannot say what's happening now without a biopsy.
And as a result, no expert can say that those were not permanent injuries in terms of the death of those liver cells from consuming real water with hydrazine, correct?
Correct.
Is it also fair to say that Ms. Bourdonnais suffered as a result of consuming, is it also fair to say that Ms. Bourdonnais has been diagnosed with hepatomegaly?
Yes.
So, and I want to make sure we're clear here. Dr. Robin tried to give a permanency opinion on these plaintiffs. Real Water's own expert refutes exactly that. He said without a biopsy, you can't testify that any of these people's dead liver cells have regenerated. Any of them. So you cannot accept what Dr. Robin has said, especially since Real Water's own expert refutes it. Your Honor, can we approach?
Yes.
I need a moment. I'm having technical issues, so give me just a moment. Judge, run over here. I think you can press bench conference right here. Oh, no, it's not.
You want to go lunch? You want to go lunch?
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
I'm talking to the, yeah, that's.
Hey, John.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably a good time for a lunch break. It's 12:35 and we're live. Anyway, remember you're admonished not to conduct yourselves or anyone else on any subject matter connected to this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to any report or the commentary on the trial by any persons connected with this case, or by any medium of information, including without limitations, newspaper, television, radio, social media. And last, do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the cause is finally committed. We'll take 45.
45, all rise for the court to adjourn.